My name is Rajesh Mahajan. Um, I'm known as Raj by most of my friends. And I was born in a defense officer's family. I've grown up practically all over the country in little batches of 2 and 3 years. Um, I did my hotel management and the job opportunity brought me to Goa. I never really left after that. And so I've been settled in Goa since 96, 97. I'm married and have two kids, 13 and 6. And professionally, I'm involved in acquisition, consolidation of real estate for large projects, creating land banks, stuff like that, as my principal, say, business activity. But I'm very keen on environmentally conscious development, um, creating large conservancies, forests, stuff like that. The Gaia Permaculture project is a sustainable living initiative co-created by like-minded individuals, people like us, um, with a deep understanding of our ecosystem, uh, of, of nurturing a design ethic that allows us to harmonize with that ecosystem rather than just keep taking away from it, and of creating an empathic community of like-minded, like-purposed individuals that can suggest, alternate ways to live better, to eat better, uh, to be more focused on our well-being rather than medicine. These kind of paradigm changes that are coming about to embody a project that carries these values and principles through. Since I'm in the business of acquiring land, I managed to get control of over 3,500 acres of land in a pristine location in the Sahyadris, the confluence of Maharashtra, Goa, and Karnataka. The land surrounds a massive, beautiful reservoir lake and displays a lot of different ecosystems that exist within such a large area. It's bordering primary forests of the Western Ghats, um, and it's a perfect location to create such a environmentally conscious and environmentally aware project. So this is essentially what our project is about, and that's why it's called the Gaia Permaculture Project. I mean, the sort of the essence of the project is embodied in its name. It's not a particular event or incidents that creates this kind of understanding. It's a series of events that occurred. I was nestling this huge land bank, which had which ran into severe problems uh, with the environmental clearances, because any kind of a large project so close to the Western Ghats was deemed not sensitive. I was not eco-sensitive then, so I never really understood it till environmentalism or an understanding of the environment stood up as an obstacle in the course of my say business activity. And so I was compelled to research what this meant, and I found myself as an active part of the say land industry on the other side of environmental consciousness and not with it. So starting from there, which is about 3 4 years ago, there were a series of events, the process of researching and trying to understand what environment is brought me to ways to use the land, the way we need to change the way we approach acquisition of land. Like the Hindu culture has always identified this as Mother Earth, as a living organism, and modern science seems to now postulate the same thing, that the Earth is a living superorganism with its own sort of self-regulatory mechanisms. I want to refrain from using the word conscious being. It has been suggested that it is one, and there is debate about whether the Earth is a conscious being or not. So we sort of leave that out. But it is a living system. It's a network of interconnected uh, bodies with their own relationships with each other. It's got an energy flux that goes in, comes out, and it has its own self-regulatory mechanism. Um, in this whole culture of ours, which is based on sort of conspicuous consumption, we just consume everything. We somewhere have thrown ourselves out of balance with nature. And I felt this was what the environmentalists, from policy to activists, were trying to tell me when I tried to come up with this whole development project on this beautiful piece of land. Thankfully for me, in retrospect, I sort of switched sides uh, and realized that this whole conservancy and environmentalism effort is 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 driven again very narrow-mindedly, very sort of focused only on a particular aspect of the whole thing. There was no holistic approach. There was no understanding that human population has its demands, which can't be sacrificed. But we need to definitely find a way in which we could sort of.
It's more like, here's the bad guy, shoot him down.
Yes, that's our approach. But we needed to have an approach saying, why is he bad, and can he be made good? That kind of an approach.
So
we needed a clearer understanding of how this works. And there's been also a lot of research, talk, and study in social development, natural capitalism, Paul Hawken, all this emerging economy, new consciousness. All this obviously attracted me, and I read through a host of stuff um, um, which sort of inspired me. But I couldn't find an application or a set of applications that I could actually take all this knowledge and put into practice. And so um, it led to this project, because here I was with a piece of land that was environmentally supreme and locationally beautiful and a great way to live and be. And I was interested in this sustainability and eco development and renewable energy and all that. I had learned a lot in the course of land acquisition about dealing with local populations, and studied other acquisitions that have happened and the issues that local populations had with such exclusive communities being developed in their midst, what it did to their water resources, all this kind of it's all out there for us to see. And yeah, at some point there was a conscious decision to sort of approach everything through the sustainability angle, and to explore whether there is economic potential in this, or are we always going to approach sustainability like a charitable venture, which is, I'm 100% capitalist and 20% I'll give to sustainability. Is that going to be our approach, or are we going to take this leap of faith and actually do something that makes a statement? And that's one of the prime inspirations that it came about, and the whole project was sort of conceived.
So would you say then this is actually the primary work you're doing, and no longer are you involved in buying and selling land because that's different, this is different?
But that's not really true. Um, Even an army of sustainability warriors needs to feed themselves. So I do buy and sell land. What is changing is the approach to business. It's no longer about maximizing profits. It's about optimizing value from the work you do. Um, so as a rule, wherever I am involved in a land acquisition, we invest parts of our profits into social ventures, or education trusts, or I mean, it started with something as bland as religious activity, promoting temples, but we had the good fortune to actually build and construct a temple, but use it as a venue and a hub, or a trust to promote education and upliftment programs, rather than just kirtan and bhajan, which also happens, and it's a great way for people to congregate under a system of belief. So I got nothing against that. And so making the businesses that I do socially aware, environmentally aware of the implications of what we do, has been the main shift in my mind or my approach. Um, so I can say now that I head a group of businesses that is environmentally aware, if not sound yet. And the Gaia Permaculture project is therefore a primary defining activity for what I do or what I believe in or what inspired me and has resulted in such a large collection of people towards this common, endeavor. The Gaia Permaculture project is a land trust which has an abundance of trees on it. And we've been for a long time influenced by this idea of having a natural resource based economy or something like that. There's this new paradigm in development and funding called crowdfunding. There are so many alternative mechanisms coming up for all facets of not just business but enterprise. And the Gaia Permaculture Project is a model that can sort of assimilate all these aspects and create different levels of association for different people. Let's What underlies the project is a deep understanding of your immediate environment and your ecology. An understanding of the natural system that you live in. So in our language we would call it Gaian consciousness or Gaian perspective, having a Gaian perspective about the way the world is and sort of the way your land is. Um Being a part of the project presumes that you do understand that whenever you take something away from the natural system around you, you need to replenish it. If you're going to take away some resource, there is some way in which you can compensate with the planet, and that awareness is the underlying principle of all resource-based economies. In our massive 3,500 acres of land, we've got about 2,000 acres of forest, and we intend to use a single tree and its adoption by interested people as a mechanism for funding this project, from which we will create opportunities in natural development, in renewable energy, a community of people who live with these principles of natural development, organically growing your food, powering your houses using renewable energy sources, creating new alternate education systems. Just to throw examples at you, Steinerian school, a yoga academy, a naturopathy group, or a herbal processing plant, also mango jam units, or whatever. So there's so much enterprise that that is available there. Being on a lake allows us to actively promote uh, adventure sports which are non-fossil fuel driven, like no skis, water skis, and jet motors, whatever those are, the super fast boats, but sailing, kayaking, canoeing, um, small means of association with our natural environment, which I think with an ever increasing urban population, our children, I mean, I grew up in a lot of natural area,
Okay.
but my kids haven't had that fortune. My friends' kids who've purely grown up in large cities like Pune or Mumbai or Bangalore haven't had that opportunity at all.
Mm.
And when and where are they going to get this? So all these avenues also need to be explored, and they're all uh, avenues that people create as enterprise or endeavors. As a project coordinator, or let's say as a project um, regulatory agency, we only expect that people be aware of their environment, follow the guidelines that are prescribed to develop, build, construct, and use the natural resource around you, and participate in a community that not only empathizes with its own members but also reaches out to positively affect and influence its surrounding areas. That's how economies grow, in my understanding of economies. Um, so yes, this is what essentially our project is. And there's a certain amount of land that's reserved for residents. You can adopt a certain number of trees to get a grant on a particular acreage of land, like let's say an acre. Build your own little sustainable house there. If you're a filmmaker, make films, create a location for films. As long as the principles of developing a film studio are environmentally sound and sustainable, and you are in a position to mitigate this footprint by again planting a few more trees, I think you are a carbon neutral, environmentally aware guy, and you're more than welcome. So, what kind of people? The enthusiastic, honest kind, if I may put it like that. But all of us have certain skill sets, and all these skill sets are available and adopted by us because we see them as necessary tools for surviving in this world the way we want to survive. You became a career professional of a certain kind because either the opportunities presented you or the contingencies forced you. You know, that's what you do, and you'd like to do many other things, but that's a choice that being involved with the Gaia Permaculture project offers you. Either you learn something new and make your life around it, or so we are open to our friend Guido, who wants to just come there and live there naturally and sustainably.
Hmm.
Just as much as we are open to our friend John, who wants to come there and throw in a few kayaks into the lake and start a small eco kayaking club where you can be a member and go enjoy a kayak. And that's how he intends to sustain himself and build his little eco house and live by the lake. So it's a diverse community that we intend to create of people who will uh, base their lives around that ecosystem that exists and seek opportunities from it, promote opportunities from it.
So, can you expand on this tree adoption and currency, which I think people might want to understand? When you're inside, if you're a member and you're in this Gaia
Yeah.
Permaculture project, you no longer use currency, or how does that work? Do you still use rupees to?
I mean, a lot has been said about non-money economies and resource based and this, that, and the other. However, I feel that moving away from this current money economy to a some ideal system, whether it's giftivism, barterism, or a mix of any of these, moving away from these is it's a transitionary process that we need to incur, and so we thought the best way to store value all the contributions that a project like ours would receive, whether it's money to um, get some land, or if it's money to create some enterprise over there, or if it's social money to educate kids or to do some social good or whatever, that should be stored in a natural resource that was finite across the system. So we created this tree resource exchange economy because we have a couple of 100,000 trees, fully grown trees, as part of our forest, um, which we intend to conserve, research, and study because it's one of the few biodiversity hotspots, undocumented biodiversity hotspots in the world, and it's of immense interest to our environmental and field ecology study teams and basically our biodiversity research trust. Uh, So the tree is has been monetized as a unit of store of value and as an economic currency within the project. So you enter the project by adopting, or you participate in the project by adopting anything starting with one tree and going up to, let's say, 100 trees an acre, which allows you grant of 1 acre of land to reside there. You know, but let's say you want to set up a school over 5 acres. That's Steinerian residential school or something like this. I'm just using commonly understood examples, but let's say you want to do that, and you want to crowd fund this project as well because you have a network. You're a teacher of some repute, and you believe in what you're doing, and you've got 5,000 people on your database who would love to promote this. if you would get them to store their value in adopted trees as well, then the school would essentially have a 10-acre forest which is reserved for it, for the trees that have been adopted by members who wanted to fund the school. So the Gaia Permaculture project doesn't just demand that you adopt these trees like some tradable thing.
Mm-hmm.
But they can also be, it's a crowdfunding model that's been suggested for everything, for individual involvement, for institutional involvement, for private business enterprises, for everybody. It's like a unit of currency to enter the project. It's freely tradable, so it allows you an exit mechanism as well.
Yeah.
Since each of the trees in our project would be uniquely identified and tagged, it's like a printed rupee note. It's got a unique identification.
Okay.
But tomorrow you don't want to, for some reason, be a part of this project anymore. All you have to do is to request the Gaia Permaculture project people to transfer it to somebody else. Either you choose or they bring in, for the value that's decided between whoever is adopting them and whoever is letting go of that adoption. As far as we are concerned, we received already the store of value in terms of money per tree that allowed us to build this project and to sustain ourselves.
That's fine as far as when people want to get the grant to stay there. They have access to stay in that piece of land. What Once I start the school, once I start the kayak ride center, once I start the yoga center, and somebody comes in saying, I'd like to start attending this yoga class, or I want a ride on the lake. He still uses the Indian rupee currency to buy that, or is there another type of Gaia currency that works within the 3,500 acre?
Well, as things stand today, um, we cannot deny the currency that exists outside the project, and you also cannot deny that we don't live in a society that can be so insular that you can, once entering the Gaia Permaculture project, never need to see another note of rupee ever again. The existence of money is accepted. Within the project, you can trade it through alternate forms of currency, which we are still working on. Today, we have the tree and the fruit of the tree, which is a tradable unit. But eventually, we will develop something that's based on the entire exchange mechanism or transaction that happens between people, which is why we need currencies. No, you need a currency, so there is a common measure of value.
So it's possible that, say, somebody adopts 100 trees to get, say, some portion of the land access to stay and build a house.
Yes.
Then, based on those 100 trees, the production of that and maybe the sale of its produce or its excess creates some rupees in terms of, because you sold it. So that portion of the revenue also goes to the people that adopted the trees,
Yes.
and so then that can be the currency that they can use inside.
Yes. Not necessarily. The produce also is a currency. It's only when you want to take this produce or its value outside the system.
Yes.
That
So,
is when you can convert it freely and quickly into money.
so is that part of the plan or not necessary?
It is. It is a part of the plan.
So,
The ability to switch your internal currency to an external currency without getting too much into deflation, inflation, and all that jazz
mhm.
has to be automatic and can only be done by creating products that are easily transferable, right?
So
I
the
mean, if
price.
the mangoes from your tree become mango jam and is sold by your cooperative, within the project you would happily accept 2 bottles of jam every month for something that you do for, say, Rishi. Rishi pays you with the mango jam that he's got from the cooperative as part of his whole part ownership of the tree. And you are happy to give him 2 kayak rides because this is barterism that's going on as an individual exchange between two people. But
Okay.
if I want to take a bus ride from the project to Mapsa, I need to pay cash. Nobody's going to accept my mango jam. So in which case I need a mechanism where I could
Sell out.
also have an outlet where my cooperative sells this mango jam, so cash is collected.
Right. Got that. So the currency is used when you want to do or transact with the outside world,
Yeah.
right? With the rest of the world, not the outside world, the rest of the world.
Yeah.
But when you are inside the 3,500 acre land, you might not necessarily use rupees
Not
currency.
necessarily.
You might just say, "Look here,
Yes.
deduct
In
this
fact,
from
the
my."
intention is to evolve to a far more divisible unit of currency that's based on natural resource. But um, I think it's leading the horse by its nose to think of that now.
Okay.
Right now, we need to create a monetizable unit of storing money within the project by getting a system of adoption of trees, which will result in the common fruit of the trees. And all this will take a little while, you know. Sustainability is a slow game. It builds over a period of time. There will be people, say, residing there who will have excessive energy production because they are focused on creating solar energy. Now, this energy is also a monetizable currency because it can be given to Rishi in exchange for 2 videos a week that he makes for them to, to make an illustration.
Right.
And it is my personal belief that an eventual economy that will evolve would be based on monetizing renewable energy, its production and consumption. But I don't want to sound like some predictability guru or something like that. So I would say it's a distinct possibility that uh, there is an internal currency which is a unit of exchange. But it always needs to have convertibility to the outside currency. So then that facilitates exchange with the world without, not just the world within. We already have a pretty vibrant community of interested, aligned people who are more than keen to participate. Uh, but like I said earlier, it's a slow evolution process. We are in the process of we've just initiated a tagging the tree program at this 10-acre farm where we are sitting, and this would enable us to create a system by which we could assign unique identification to each tree. We need to we are in the process of creating a system by which we can monitor it, so virtually from anywhere in the world you'd be able to view your tag tree. You'd be able to follow a story that's happening in the forest, like our colleagues who work within the biodiversity survey field told me this illustration, rather interesting example about indicator species. When you see a certain kind of butterfly, you know the existence of a particular kind of tree, or vice versa. When you see a particular kind of tree and a flower, you presume the existence of a particular butterfly, which means you can actually piece together the entire food chain that exists in that vicinity. And by being able to assign or geotag each individual member's tree, all these adoptees will be able to see their forest and the stories that happen within the forest, and actually be virtually able to monitor the progress of the tree that they've adopted. So involvement, or who can qualify as anybody who empathizes with what we are trying to do, can definitely help us by um, adopting a single tree. Uh, that's one way of sort of associating with the project. Um, to be enthusiastic enough to come there and physically do things, or um, to actually grant yourself or get yourself granted an acre of land to live there, is a matter of how many trees are required to be adopted to compensate for the footprint that you create on the land. I mean, we have a very simple calculation that works in this case, and your the value that you've actually spent on acquiring, let's say, control over that land is always stored in a tree. And so the transfer of that tree enables you to exit within and out of the system whenever you choose to. It is really a easy and free mechanism.
Got
And
that.
yeah.
The value of the tree may change in over time.
No, as far as the project is concerned, when we take a certain value from you for the adoption of a particular tree, and to keep matters simple and not to try and classify trees by their size, height, weight, girth, volume, there is a minimum specified girth or sort of quantum of tree that it needs to qualify as an adoptable tree. So the the Gaia Permaculture project doesn't intend to tag little saplings and say that's your tree. They are actually physically grown trees of a certain size, and the basic parameter is their ability to sequester carbon as a tree. And these each and every of these trees is uniquely tagged within the system, right? So once you've adopted a certain number of trees, that allows you to create a certain footprint. And for everything successively that you do, we have a method of measuring that footprint and getting you to adopt a tree. So as far as the Gaia Permaculture project's intention is concerned, it is only that that tree be conserved and replenished down the line, for which we have mechanisms of sponsoring a certain part of your money to create nurseries to do. That also would not be monoculture plantations; they would be mixed-use forestries. So we have a 7.5, 8,000 tree sapling nursery right here in this 10-acre farm, which we're nurturing to create like social mirror forests in the areas that are not planted yet or that don't have natural forests within our larger project.
What?
Anyways, coming back to the basis of your question, therefore, as far as the project is concerned, once the tree has been adopted the first time, the project has received a store of value that was declared on that.
Correct.
And after 3 years, if an adoptee wants to relinquish his tree to someone else, if that price varies or is higher than, that is actually none of our concern. It's an without world transaction that happens outside. It doesn't really matter to us. For us, it's a matter of receiving consent and instruction from you saying you want to transfer your tree to so and so person. The act of adoption itself presumes alignment with our charter and our system of guidelines that we all choose to follow within the project.
So there is a point where you'll be maxing out in terms of how much funds you can raise through the adoption of the trees to begin with from the time of starting this, kicking off this project, because there is only this many trees this land
There's
can.
only there's only a certain number of trees that can go into the entire landscape,
Right.
because it has a certain density at which it can perform, and beyond that it's just overcrowded. So it doesn't work then.
And if a tree dies, you just replant
But
another.
you replant it.
So there's
The
no
forest
there's
itself
no
is
extra.
the forest itself is dynamic. You know why do you why are we harping about this density of roughly 100 grown trees per acre?
Hmm.
Is because over a 30-year period, 20 of those old ones will die, but they will have left behind fruit that will become, say, 100 new trees, out of which 80% will be outcompeted by the 20 strong ones that survive, and that's how a natural system stabilizes itself. But we will add more forest cover in by planting new trees. So we even that has a max out, like you
Correct.
said, that has a max out potential, and that potential will be reached. But every resource based economy must have this as its basic tenet. There is a finite amount of resource, and a finite amount of that is naturally available to you, and humanity must learn a mechanism by which it survives on this, so it replenishes
Okay.
as it goes along, right?
So in terms of the max number of trees that are there, there's some number, and then once you get the funding for those maximum number of trees that you allowed people to adopt,
Yeah.
and people start moving in or people start visiting on and off, because some might be able to go ahead and say, look, I'm adopting 100 trees, and which gives them access to build a house for themselves, while others might prefer to continue to work in cities. I'd say that, look, at least let me contribute. I'll take 5 trees. I'll adopt 5 trees. That might give him access to just visiting the land once in a while. Uh, what about maintenance and upkeep and it costs money to keep things going. How do you see that happening, say 5, 10 years from now, when you're not going to receive any more money uh, to keep the infrastructure intact, which might need you to get the infrastructure maintenance from outside? Or do you think it's going to be all within? Once you've received that finite amount of money to maintain this project, you get what I'm trying to say, where my question is going.
Uh, there are two things to this. Uh, once One is to factor your operative expenses till the stability of that ecosystem and maxing out with the planting and all that. So we have a 10-acre plantation mixed use forest here, right here, of which half of it half of it is um, forest. It has a large cashew population and a large kokum population, plum kind of fruit population. But it is essentially a forest. Nobody ventures there unless during plucking time. We don't need to water it anymore. That's the beauty of natural economies. They are built on a living system, and so they are self-sustaining in their own way.
So the
So
the hope is that you won't
once
have,
maxed out, it
yeah,
will have enough produce, which will generate enough income or produce to sustain itself.
keep it going. What do you
Yeah.
see would be stuff that would still need to be got from the outside world? I mean, maybe computers would be one.
So, well, in today's sort of cross-pollinated technological civilization, the list is endless. I've read somewhere that we need 50,000 combinations of different materials in our day-to-day life. Plastic with chips, salt with sugar, all of which undergoes processing, packaging, transport, distribution.
So there's only that much that can be happen in 3,500.
But there's only that much. There's only that much that you can do, and it is a fact. I mean, if you live off fresh tomatoes, then you don't have the cans to dispose of.
Got that. So if
So
you, that's the change of lifestyle.
this is the challenge for
Yeah.
people who will come there and reside there. It's not only about mitigating footprint and having a system to mitigate that footprint. It's also about consciously consuming,
So they'll be
making
prompted
conscious
to,
choices about
yeah.
these things. Yeah.
So they have the choice, but
Yes.
then they'll be prompted to make the right choice.
So exactly, and if you exceed your footprint in some way, you'll have to mitigate it by
Right.
planting more trees or whatever that mechanism is. We are based in Goa. We operate out of Goa. Um, we don't yet have a sort of base office on site, but that's the intention after the monsoon.
Okay.
And I hope by March 2014 we have an on-site presence where people can actually visit the greater land. But we are here 12 months a year at the farm, which is a prototype sort of experimental model for the largest site,
Okay.
this 10-acre property. And all our contact details are on this on the website, which is currently in the state of development and all that. We are right now a landing page, but very soon we will have contact information and emails and stuff like that. And interested enthusiasts, lovely people are more than welcome to get in touch with us.
And
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 we are looking to associate with aligned minds, people with diverse interests.
and the website address is?
It's www.gaiapermacultureproject.org. Gaia Permaculture Project is single word.